Right. So recording has started. Good evening, good afternoon. Once again, it's nice to have us come together again to do C# together. And what I have today is just a simple .NET project, pretty simple. So what we'll be doing, the purpose of what we're doing today is to write a simple .NET Core API. Someone is in the lobby. To write a simple .NET Core API. And then explain some of the concepts we went through in our C# basics class. I explained them, so I will just go to the process of what it takes to ideate what an API should be like. What classes are we putting? What packages are we importing, and all sorts. And once we have all that, then as I go through each of these things, I will explain. I will tell us some of the concept that it binds to according to the class we had. And so let's get right to it. So let me just go ahead and share my screen with you now. That's screen 2. So you should be able to see my screen now. It's VS Code you should be seeing now. Everything just went away. Okay, it's coming back. Yeah, you should be able to see my screen now. Now let me just make sure I open the chat area so I don't miss out on things. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat area. If it's very urgent, you can unmute your mic and ask me. So today, pretty simple. We'll be looking at some of these concepts, models, entity framework, and all sorts. We'll be doing CRUD operations on databases, using packages, and then what we'll be working on is a simple movies directory application. What do I mean by that? We'll just write a simple web API that contains a list of movies. So you're able to add movies, remove movies, rate movies, edit movies, view all movies, and view details of a specific movie. And that will bind to CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, just like we have over here. And then we'll be using the following tools. I'll be using VS Code, Postman, SQL Server Developer, which I'm guessing you already have on your system, and then we'll be using the Azure Data Studio to connect to our database. So let me quickly change this over to Postman. Okay, Postman. Right, so I think it will be a good time now to get right to it. So we'll be using VS Code throughout, such that, so the reason I'm using VS Code is I want us to use the barest minimum tools possible. So regardless of the operating system you're using, either Windows, Mac, or Linux, you are able to follow through well. Or maybe if your system is not capable enough of running Visual Studio, you can still use VS Code and the tools you have to be successful. So this is the only thing I've added here. This code is already on GitHub. Let me just put up GitHub over here. Okay, the code is not on GitHub, just the files I've added just here. So let me just pull that up in a jiffy.
Yes, I can't see your screen.
So you can try to rejoin if you're not seeing the screen. So just try to rejoin. Okay, it's loading up my profile now. I just want to give us the link to the repository that I'll be accessing later on. So I go to my repositories over here. So this is it right here. Let me just copy the link here and paste into the chat window for you. Okay, so if you go to that link, you'll be able to access all the files, even though I'll add all the code in here later. So the source code will be here, all the files and everything you need to be here, so that I can reference it much later. Okay, so if first joining back. Okay, if you should be able to see my screen now. All right. All right. So let's just begin. So I'll just close this readme file. Let me. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll do a .NET new console application. Let me bring that up a little bit. Okay. Let me clear the screen so it's very much fun. So I'll do a .NET new. So if I do .NET new, just the normal way we would, it will give us a list of things we can create with .NET. And my particular focus here is .NET Web API. So right here, yeah, Web API. So I'll do .NET new Web API. Just clear the screen so it comes up in view. So I'll do .NET new Web API, and I'll output that into. No, let me just do it as it is. .NET new Web API. Okay. So I'll create that project. So what it does for me, it creates some files for me here. It creates a Git. So I already have my git ignore file already created. I have the app setting.json file that contains the configuration of my code. I have the development.json file also, app setting.development.json. That one contains configuration that is specific just to development. And then I have the CSproj file. That is the file, that is the manifest file of the project. That is what contains information about the project. So a metadata about the project. Then the license file is just something that shows the level of access applicable on the application. That one was not pre-generated by .NET. That one I did on GitHub. Then also, let me close this up. I have the program.cs file. This is the entry point of the whole application, and it contains some information here. Create also web. This is what tells our application that it is a web application. So it makes the .NET application a web application, and then it has a method that that uses the startup file as the configuration or information set that the application will start up with. And we mentioned a little bit of this in our class where we talked about dependency injection. This is a controller dependency injection. We have the configuration file, we have the services method, and we have the configure services method. This is where you configure. So basically what happens is this contains things you need to initialize at the startup of the application. And this will contain services or extension methods you need to initialize or add to your project. And the configure services method will tell you how you want to interact with them. So there's a pop-up here that tells me the required asset to build this is not here. I can decide to do this or not. Let me just do it so that I'll be fine. Then we have a pre-generated weather forecast.cs file here. This is just a model file. And so this is like what communicates to the database in the concept of this. Even though we delete this file later, I'll just run this one to be sure it works. So I'll just run it to be sure it works before I start doing all the rest of the step of our project. So I'll just do a .NET run over here. So what happens is that it goes ahead and builds this application, and then it gives me a URL. The URL contains in ideal scenarios, it will contain probably an IP address and a port number. So you can see over here, you have localhost 5001 and localhost 5000. So these are the two URLs of the application. Now, where does it get this localhost from? If I expand this properties folder and I go to launch settings.json, let me bring this a little bit lower here. This is where you see the localhost file. So this is the URL that starts the application. So you can go to any of these ports, to any of these URLs, and it will just work. And if you're on Visual Studio, it will use this IPR, this URL and ports and port number. But because we're on VS Code, you start it up as a project file, and then it will use localhost 5000. So if I go over here now, let me just control click on this. Oh, my voice is breaking on and off. Let me see. Show device settings. Just a moment. Is it stable now? So just let me know if the voice start breaking on and off again. Okay, so I think I just have to visit that URL manually. So let me just open up a new tab over here and go to localhost 5001. Let me just stop some operations over here. Just a moment. Okay, so I need to continue to this to accept the self-signed SSL certificate that generated for me. Okay, so it's telling me here that it cannot find localhost 5001. Okay. Welcome back, Sarah. So it's telling me here it cannot find localhost 5001. The reason for this, let me snap this to a side. The reason it cannot find localhost 5001 is simply because if I go to this controllers area, I go to weather forecast controller. Let me actually bring the side by side here. There is no URL, there's no homepage URL because we're writing an API. There's no homepage, there's no view to go to. So we need to go to a specific URL route. So what is supposed to happen is I'm supposed to go to that address /weather forecast. So it takes the controller name out of it if I want to go there. So I'll just copy this here and paste it at the end of my URL. And then I should see a result come up for me. So right over here, you can see I have 4 items. I have 4 weather forecast items, or it's actually 5. So this is what my API is returning. Now, I could decide to continue using a browser to do this, or I could use what we call an API client. An example of that is Postman, REST client. There's a whole lot of them. And the purpose of this API client is it lets us communicate easily with API, so we can communicate with APIs with these tools. So for the purpose of this, we'll be using Postman, and I'm just trying to launch that up. And I'll go to that same URL that we have over here on Postman. So just wait a little bit of time for Postman to come up here before we continue writing our code. So Postman is launching. So I'm just waiting for Postman to finish launching. Come on, that's taking way too long, guys. It's normally supposed to. Okay, so we can come back to Postman later, to be honest. So I'll let us know when it pops up. So let's just continue with our code. So normally what I said when we started was we will work with a simple movies directory application. And these are the things we want to happen with our application. So let me actually open a preview to the right hand side. So open preview. Yeah, that's what I want. So let me snap this to one side over here. Still loading up. So let me actually stop running this for now and close this up. Still loading up anyways. Aha. All right, so what I need to do from here on is just start creating. So the first thing I need to do is create the representation of what my movie is. Now, what does the movie have? So what I need to do first is go ahead and create a models folder over here. So I'll create a models folder. Okay, so inside this model folder, I'll create a new C# file. And there I will call it movie.cs. So I should always remember to put in this .cs extension for it. So what I need to do is just start writing my code. So I'll give it a namespace. We explained namespace in our C# basics class already. Come on now. Okay, namespace, that's codeness.simple.network project. So I will use .models over here. Right, so then I'll create a class. And I'll give my class a name. That's movie. So I'll now create the, what's it called? I'll create the members of my movies object. So first thing is our movie will have an ID, and that'll be of type integer. So I'll call this ID. Our movie will have a title, and that'll be a string. title, and it will have a rating. I'll make that a double because it can be 2.4, 3.5 or anything. So I'll call this rating. Let me call it average rating. Okay, because there's a thought I have around this. Average rating. What other properties are there in a movie? Title, movie. Okay, also link. Link to the movie. And then of course the URL of the thumbnail. That's the image that the thing we are. But let us actually skip this thumbnail part and let's stick with title, average rating, and link. All right. So let us begin. So now we have our model created for us. Now what we need to do now for our application to work is we need to create what we call a data context. Now that data context is what tells our application that this model that we are getting, it's supposed to communicate with the database. So what I'll do is over here, I'll create a data folder. And inside this data folder, I will create a data context.cs class, or I can call it application data context, application DB context, anything I want. I can call it anything. Okay. So normally I just call it application DB context in my own case, and that is not the right spelling, to be honest. So let me rename that to application DB context.cs. So I'll give it a namespace. That's codenest simple.networkprojects.data. And I'll create a class bearing the same name. Okay, Mr. Abraham, you're welcome back. Okay, so I have my application DB context, and it will inherit from a class called DB context. So it will inherit from a class called DB context. So I need to resolve this namespace because I have an error here. Sorry, I have an error here. So I'll do control dot. Nope. Is it capital B? Not too sure. Okay, I think it's small b. DB context. Let me still keep it this way. Just give me a moment over here. So
small letter
it's
is
up.
correct.
Small letter is correct. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm supposed to import a namespace called using Microsoft dot entity framework core. Entity framework core. Now this is a problem here because I have not referenced entity framework core in my project. So I need to add a reference to entity framework core, and I can get this from the NuGet from NuGet packages. So what I need to go ahead and do is go to nuget.org. Let me just blow that up. So that is loading. So I need to search for Microsoft.entity framework core in the NuGet packages so that I can get the exact instruction on how to install it. So let's just wait a little bit of moment for that. So I'll just search for it over here. So the NuGet package directory is what contains libraries that you can use for your .NET projects. So it lets you, instead of you having to rewrite code over and over by yourself, you can use the NuGet package to NuGet packages to enhance your application, because there are people that have written these libraries for you already. You can just go ahead and start using them for yourself. Right. So .NET CLI, I don't want to use the preview. I want to use the original, the generally available one. So let me just expand that and select a non-preview version. So I'll be using the 3.1.6 version. So I'll select .NET CLI over here, and this is the instruction I'll need to run in VS Code. So I'll just use the copy key over here, minimize this, open up my terminal, and paste that command in. Okay, so I'll just paste that command I copied from over there. And then it's go ahead and add entity framework NuGet package to my application. And then this problem would go away in a little while. You see, the problem is gone now. So I can now start using my DB context as I normally should be doing. So normally what I need to do next is create, what's it called? I need to create a constructor over here. Just allow me to do a little bit of copy and paste over here. So I'll create a constructor over here. Let me minimize this. Let me close this up. So this constructor is passing in some options. So this options is using the application DB context, but do not worry so much about that one. What to worry about is how our model communicates with the database. So normally what will happen is we'll need to create what we call the DB set of our models. So what I'll do is DB set of model, sorry, of movie, not model. And I'll call this movies. So I need to resolve this namespace by importing that's my model over here. So normally what this DB set instruction does is simple. It tells our database context that we are using this model, this movie model, this one over here. We are using this movies model to create a database table. Now that we have this, we need to now tell our application how to communicate with the database. So what we need to do first, or not in any particular order anyway, is to go into our app settings.json file and create what we call a connection string. So over here, I'll create a section called connection strings. You can Google or Bing how to better what JSON file looks like and how they work, but it's nothing complex, nothing too special. JSON is your friend. You should know JSON pretty well. So what I need to do is over here, create my connection name. So you can have multiple connections to database. You can have more than one database that your application connects to. So what I'll do is create what we call a default connection. This can be any name that you want, to be honest. You can name it anything you want. You can call it movies connection or movies DB connection. You can call it anything you want. But I prefer to just call it default collection because it's pretty simple to go with. So I have default collection over here. And on my system, I have my database. So what normally, let me open up Azure Data Studio. So I have SQL Server Developer installed on my system, and I guess you also have it. You can use any version of SQL Server that you're comfortable with. Developer, Enterprise, Professional. No, is there Professional? I'm not sure. There's Developer, there's Express, and there's the normal SQL Server. All right, so I have Azure Data Studio over here. This is my database client that I used to connect to my database. So currently, I have some database I've already connected to in the past, and this is how I connect to my databases. So because I am using Windows authentication for my database server, I can just create a new connection over here. So I'll use dot in my own case, and I'll select Windows authentication, and I'll just do a connect. So this will list all my databases for me, and I can decide to use an existing database or a new database for this purpose. But for this purpose, I would actually use a new database, a fresh database. All right. So over here you can see it will load up all my stuff, all my databases that I have on my system for me. So it's showing me here that I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 databases installed on my system, but I will just not use any of them quite yet. So what I'll do is I will set my database source over here. Now this database source can be anything. It can be SQL Server, can be SQLite, can be PostgreSQL, can be MongoDB, can be Cosmos DB, can be a file, can be anything. So what I have over here, I'll just call it Movies DB. I'll call this Movies DB. So what I have over here is this data source equals dot. It's telling me that this database is my local host server. If this data was supposed to be on a server somewhere, I would have the URL of the server, maybe an IP address or something, or the fully qualified domain name, that's FQDN. Normally what happens is the database admin will give you these credentials, but because this is lying on my system, I'm using the dot keyword. And the initial catalog here is saying the database it needs to connect to. If I go into Azure Data Studio, you can see there's no Movies DB here yet, but it should be here in a jiffy. Let's just wait for it to come up. So, and I'm telling it that this is a trusted connection. So it means I can trust this connection to my database server, because normally there's a security rule with SQL Server, but I'm telling it here that it is secure to connect to it right over here. So now I have my database connection string. I have my database model. What to create my database model. But now my application does not know how to communicate with database quite yet. So what I need to do is go into my startup.cs file and tell my application when it's starting up that I want it to go ahead and use SQL Server and connect to that my database that I specified in app-settings.json. So what I need to do, just give me a moment here, do a little bit of copy and paste. Is, remember we have our application DB context here. So I'm telling these services to add a DB context, and the type of context is application DB context, the one we declared over here. The definition of our database collection, of our database tables, is to use that, and then I pass in some options using dependency injection, and I'm telling it to, so I'll need to resolve this. No, not use block body. So I need to import one, I need to reference one more assembly here. I'll get to that in a bit. So what it's saying here is I'm telling these services to use my use a DB context of this, and then I'm telling it to use SQL Server, because SQL Server is what I'm using on my system. But if I'm using another kind of database, let's say MySQL, I would need to change this keyword over here to use MySQL. If you're using Postgres, I'll tell you to use PostgreSQL or any kind of database I'm connecting to. And I'm telling it to get the configuration of my application and get the default connection for it. So once you get the default connection, it will go ahead and, so this default connection here is what I have in my app.json file. So this default connection is what it will get over here. So now it knows exactly the kind of database I'm connecting to and the exact database it needs to get its data from or write data to. But this problem still remains. So what I need to do is go back to NuGet and import a namespace or a reference and assembly called, excuse me. So I need to actually add Microsoft.entity framework over here. I don't need to reference any special thing. So I need to add Microsoft.entity framework over here. Just a moment. I also need to import the, okay, the message injection is already there. Entity framework is here. What am I missing?
Microsoft entity framework called .SQL7.
Okay, great, thank you. So I need to go back to NuGet and get that package. So I'll just search for the command to put in for that. So I need to install Microsoft Identity Framework called SQL Server. If I'm using my SQL, I'll just change that argument over here. Okay, so this is it over here. Let me just open that in the new tab. So if I was to use my SQL, this is just an example. Let me search for my SQL. So if I wanted to use my SQL, it should be somewhere down here, but let me not worry so much about that. Let me just worry about the one I want to use right now. So all I need to do actually, let me not worry my head too much about all this preview stuff. Let me just go back here because I know exactly what command to type. I just wanted to show us how to get to the NuGet area to get our packages that we need. So I need to open up the terminal. I think I pressed too much buttons. All right, so what I need to do, no. Just a moment. Aha. So to add the entity framework SQL Server package for me, and that would mean I'm almost good and ready to go. So this problem will go away in just a little while. By itself, it will just go away because now I have the needed package for it to resolve itself. Now that that is done, the other thing I need to do such that my application can effectively communicate with the database or do what we call migrations. So now I have my model. I need to be able to create the database tables, to design my database tables with entity framework. So what I need to do is I need to ensure I have the EF2, and that's .NET EF. You can Google how to install .NET EF. So what I need to do next is install another NuGet package. It tells me what that NuGet packages let me do. It lets me take my model and transform it into a table, and it's Microsoft.entity framework core.design. So let me just go ahead and install that right now. Core.design. Now that I have all these sets, I'm pretty much ready to go. So what I need to do next, let me just clear this screen. Oh, not that. Okay, so I'm pretty much good to go. So let me just delete all these controllers that I have over here because I really don't need them anymore. the default controller that was created for me. I don't need them. So I'll just remove it. So what I need to do for myself now is create my own controller. So I'll create a new file. I'll call it movies controller.cs. All right, so I'll give myself a namespace. I'll create the namespace rather. Namespace that's codenest.simple.networkproject.controllers. All right. Excuse me. Then what I need to do is create my class. And that will be movies controller. And that will inherit from controller base. What controller base allows me to do is let me properly make sure this is a controller that I'm communicating with. Because without this, it is just a plain class. So I need to resolve the namespace by using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC. All right, so I'm pretty much ready to go now. Just that I need to now specify that this is actually an API controller. So I need to adorn it with this attribute. So I need to tell it's an API controller. And another thing I need to do is create a route for it. So what that route allows me to do is let me specifically create a URL that I will go to be able to access the actions in the controller. So what I need to do is create another attribute, call it route, and then I specify the route I want inside there. So I can do API, and then I can put in any custom name I want over here. But what I should actually do is I will use a placeholder. All right. So what this placeholder lets me do is it takes the name of the controller and then uses it inside here. So if I'm using movies controller, if I'm going to the website now, I'll use API/movies. If I have people controller, API/people, API/this/that. That is what I would have. All right. Now that this is good to go, another thing I'll need to do now is, you can see I have a capital letter over here, but you realize most times what happens is when you go to some websites, you see that every time it's small case URL, and this is actually sort of outside the scope of what I plan to do today. I need to ensure that all my URLs are lowercase, but I would not have time to be actually coding them with my hand. So what I would do is go to my startup.cs file and watch me. What I'll do services, add routing, and I put in some options. Sorry about that. Boom. So what happens over here is I'm telling that every route I visit should be lowercase. That is everything I did over here. So I'm telling C# that every URL I visit should automatically become lowercase. That is exactly what I did over here. Now, so next thing I need to do now is start writing my codes to do my CRUD operations. Remember our agenda? We've talked about entity framework. We've not talked about migrations. Now we've talked about dependency injection. We've talked about routes. So we've talked about packages a little bit also. We've talked a little bit about configurations also. So let's actually go ahead now and start writing our code. Remember, we have our application DB context right over here. And it contains the definition of what our database tables look like. Even now, before we do this, I need to quickly go back, or not really go back, but there's a concept of what we call automatic migrations. And what it lets us do is, when our application starts up, we need to tell it that any changes that exist in our database, it should go ahead and apply it. So what I'll need to do is go into my setup.cs file, and somewhere over here, before I use routing, it's actually not compulsory anywhere I put it. I need to be able to tell my application that whenever it's starting up, any changes that have been made to my database model, it should go ahead and make the changes to my database structure. Okay, so what I'll do over here, I will inject my application DB context. I'll just call that context, DB context rather. Oh, there's a question. Oh, network, not a problem. This is being recorded, so you'll have I'll share the link with you much later, so you can access it in case you have any network problem. Don't worry, okay? All right, so I've put in my DB context now. So what I need to do is now tell it to perform an automatic migration whenever the application starts up. So if there are changes, it will go ahead and run it. If there are no changes, it will leave it just as is. All right. Excuse me, my nose aches me a little bit. So what I need to do is say DB context dot database dot migrate. All right, so this information over here tells my database that it needs to do a migration. So automatic database migration. Let me just put that command over there. All right, now that I have that, I'm good to go. So I need to go back into my controllers now and start performing my CRUD operations, my create, read, update, delete operations. And we said this is what we want to achieve. We want to be able to add a movie. Let me just snap that to one side. We want to be able to add a movie, delete a movie, rate a movie, edit a movie, view all movies, and view specific details of a movie. So now to be able to rate a movie, now all the rest of these ones, they are pretty simple to implement. I will not lie to you. But this rating part is a little bit complex. Okay, so now we need to get average ratings of the system. So what normally happens with rating is that, let me bring up a whiteboard over here. So what happens with rating is, let's say you have 500 ratings and someone put in 2, we have 2 star, we have 3 star, we have 1 star, we have 4 star. What normally is supposed to happen is it will take all these ones and add them together. So it's an average. So it is it can be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 over all the ratings. Then it will give us the average rating. So what normally is supposed to happen now is, I'm thinking in my head, we're supposed to have a rating table that contains the ID of the movie and the exact rating that was put there. Okay, so what I'm normally supposed to do now is go back here and create a new class. So I'll create a new class over here. I'll call it rating.cs. Let me just do a little bit of copy and paste over here. I think the rating will be the most complex part of it, to be honest. So what I need to do is I need to give this an ID. And then I'll need to the value of the rating, and then I need to get the movie ID. Okay, so what normally happens if I want to do a rating, I'll give it 1 star over. So let's say I have movie that has ID 1. I'll give movie ID 1 a rating of 5. Okay, so that is what I'll have over here now. Then okay, I'm not even sure I need to have this over here. Okay, let me remove average rating from here. Let me just have this information right in my view. Okay, so I need to go back into my DB context now and add a table for rating. So I'll call that ratings. We'll come back to the logic of writing that one later. Let's actually go ahead and work on our movies. So we need to create, we talked about HTTP verbs earlier on. So the HTTP verbs, they are HTTP put, post, get, delete, and patch. We'll be using 4 of them. We'll be using post to write information, get to retrieve information, delete to remove information, and put to modify information. So what I'll go ahead and do now is I'll start writing my code. So what I'm normally supposed to do is do a constructor dependency injection. So I'll create a constructor over here, and I'll pass in my application DB context, because I need to use that database over here. So I need to create a private field for this, private read only. And then I'll assign this to the injected, to the property I injected, to the database context I injected. All right, so I'm properly good to go now. So all I need to do now, I need to yeah. So I need to do retrieve all movies. So I need to do an HTTP get. HTTP get. Yep. No. I missed something over there. Okay, so I'll do a public action result of I enumerable of movies. Movie. And I'll call that get movies. I'll need to resolve this namespace. So what I need to do now is get all the movies from my database. So what I need to do is I'll do var movies equals my DB context that I've injected dot movies. And I'll return that as my return value. So this will get all the movies from database and return it to the calling application. So I've done the HTTP get. What I need to do next now is get a particular person. So that will also be an HTTP get. But in this case, I'll need to pass in an ID. Good. So I need to pass in an ID. So let me just do a little bit of copy and paste over here. I'll modify this, don't worry. I need to get just one particular movie. Yep. And then I'll pass in this as a parameter. Let me make sure it's lowercase. Okay, so what I need to do now is do the movie equals db context dot movies dot find what am I missing here? I think I'm missing one thing, just one thing. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do this the old way, first or default. And this will save my life. This is the way I know of doing things. All right. Okay, so what I'll need to do now is return that. So I'll say if movie is not null, return the movie. But if it's null, return not found. Okay, so if it finds a movie, it returns the movie to us. If not, it returns a not found result. So what normally happens is you go to the URL /API/movies/the ID, which can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then once it gets that result, it will return it to you. Okay, so that's that. Next part is I need to, so I've done view all movies, view particular movie. I need to add a movie. So that would be an HTTP post. HTTP posts. Okay. Oh no, why do I keep doing this? So I'll do a public action result. I need to return that old movie entity. Create movie. Okay, so what I need to do, there's something I'm missing over here. Yeah, I'm very sure I'm missing something. Yeah, so I need to add, so if I'm doing a post request, what I'm adding to my, the model I'm creating, the model I'm getting normally comes from the body. So I will have to create a movie. So I'll just call this movie. So see that I use a smaller case over here. Okay, now you might now be wondering, will I have to now create my own ID for this movie or not? Now that brings the question of binding models. So I need to be able to just pass in the information I need from my user. Okay, so I think over here I should actually also have created dates. Okay, so that I can track information on it. So I'll put a created date over here. Created date. All right, so let me just add this over here. Okay, so what I need to do now is create a new class. And the only information I'll be passing is just the title and the link. Now I could just say add movie binding model over here. It's nothing pretty special. And I can move it to its own class if I want. But let me just keep it there for the purpose of having everything together. Or should I? Let me keep it all in one place. You can separate it if you want much later. Or you can give it a much descriptive name, but because this project is small, I'm not doing any kind of splitting up and down. So what normally would have happened is I'll have a folder called binding, data, view models, and then I'll have separate classes inside them. Because this is a pretty small project, I have everything in one place, but it's not best practice. Anyways.
Yes. Lip gloss.
All right, so now that I have my add movie binding model, I should even still have edit movie. All right, so I'll go back to my controller now. So what I need to do is change this to add movie. Right, so what I need to do now is I will need to create my a row in the table, a row in the movies table that contains details of my movie. So what I need to do is say var movie to create equals a new instance of movie. Okay, and then what I'll have here is the title of the movie I'm creating will be the title I pass in. So let me minimize this a little bit. Will be the title of the movie I pass out. That will be add movie dot title. Then the link to the movie would be add movie dot link. Then the created date will be date time dot now. The ID will be automatically generated for us, so we don't have to worry about that one. Now that we've created the model, all we need to do now is say var. We don't even need to do a var. All we need to do is say db context dot movies dot add movie to create. Then I'll do db context dot save changes. So this will create a write operation to the database, and then once it's done doing the writing, it will now save the changes to commit the changes to the database. There's a question over here. Okay, Sarah is saying we should separate them. Of course. Let me go ahead and separate them now. Where is that over here? Movie. All I need to do is
think it's
just
better we just keep it simple there, Abby.
Anything works for me, to be honest. Anything works for me. Since they still have the same namespace, we are safe. And everything works. It will still work the same way.
Okay, it's not add movie again now. It's edit movie.
So we have add movie. We also have edit movie.
We have edit movie. Different classes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's continue now. So we've saved the changes. So what I need to do now is return that model to my what's it called? So you know what I'll do here? So what I'm doing over here is simple. I'm creating the movie and I'm assigning it to a value called created movie. So what happens is once you create it, it will get the whole object it creates in the database and then return it to wherever it's been called from. And that's what I have over here. Next thing I would like to do here now is so I've done add movie, edit movie. No, we've not done edit movie. So let's do edit movie. So that'll be an HTTP put. HTTP put. Let me just do a little bit of copy and paste over here so that we don't waste time. I need to remove some stuff over here. This should be edit movie. All right, so what I need to do, I need to get the ID. So in the edit movie object, edit movie, where are you? I need to pass in an ID. So I need to have an ID field over here. That would be its ID. All right. So what I want to do is say now var. So you first need to find the movie in the database that has the ID we want to edit. So we say var movie to edit. Movie to edit is equal to just copy and paste this over here to save time. Now, if movie to edit is null, return a not found. But if it finds something, it should proceed. I don't even need this else over here, to be honest. I don't need it. So it should just go ahead and proceed as normal. So what I need to do now is do movie to so I'll say movie to edit dot title is whatever information we are now passing into it. Title. Actually, I may not need that ID I put in the edit movie object. So movie to edit. I'm just copy and paste. Dot link equals I'll change this in a bit. I'll change it in a bit. Don't worry. This is some of the pros and cons of copy and paste. Some things your eyes might overlook, and it now start becoming bad practice. But anyways, now we're good to go now. So once I've done this assignment, what I need to do from here on, let me just, I actually don't need this. To be honest, I don't need it. All right, so what I need to do now is do a DB context. Save changes. And then I can decide whatever I want to return. I can decide to return that same model. I can decide to return a no content or whatever. But most times what we return is actually a no content result. But in my own case, let me just return the model. So let me return movie to edit. Okay, so we've done add, we've done edit, we've done view all, we've done specific details, and we've done, so it remains delete movie and rate movie. Let's do delete movie right now. Okay, so what I need to do now is so that will be an HTTP delete, and I need to get the ID. That'll be a placeholder, so it needs to be this way. and it will now be public action results this can just be an I action result, to be honest. It doesn't really matter. And then I'll say delete. Nice. So I'll just call it delete movie. So I'll be safe. Okay, so I get that now. So what I need to do now is I'll still need to find the movie. So I'll just paste this over in here. Let me delete this line over here. If it finds it, it should go ahead and run all the operations. So what would normally happen is I'll do db context dot movies dot delete dot, it should be a remove, yeah, remove movie to, now I need to change this again now, movie to delete. Yep. So to return the movie, it will remove the movie, and I need to save the changes. I need to terminate this line and then save the changes. And then I will return a no content result. To be able to familiar with the kind of result you'll be passing back to your users, you should totally check out all the kind of HTTP status codes we have and the kind of operations they apply to, so that you can write better APIs in the future. So now this is, I think, good to go. So the only part that remains now is to rate a movie. Okay. So what I need to do, okay, let me just go ahead and just run this and be sure it actually works before I do rating part. All right, so what I need to do now, I have all my application set to go. What I need to do now, I have all my models set, I have everything set, but I don't have a database table yet. So what I need to do is first do a database migration. So I'll do a .NET EF .NET. Let me remember the command though. .NET EF database. No, let me just do this. Let me do .NET EF and see the list of commands I can perform. Since I have it. Aha, I have it. So .NET EF database. Let me just do this CLS. .NET EF database migrate. Database add EF migrations add. I'll call this initial migration. I'm not even sure of the command I type in there, but let's hope I'm correct. I think my command was right. So it will create a migration for me now. Oh, there's a little bit of problem. Oh, it's telling my .NET EF tool is out of date. I'll definitely update that. Value cannot be no connection string. What am I missing out?
What did I miss? Oh, data finished. Yes.
You don't worry, it's recorded, so you can always come back and watch it. Don't worry. Um, so I'm missing something out, to be honest. And I'm not exactly sure. It's saying parameter connection string cannot be null. My app.json file has my connection string already. Oh, default connection. Oh God, why did I miss that? Not collection. Default connection is what I should have here, not default collection, because that is what I'm using here. Let me just be sure the setting is correct. Aha. So let's do this again. Now this should work. So it's successfully added the migration. It will create a migration folder for us and add the migration files right in here. So if I was to go ahead now and run this application, you can see right here, let's go back to my Azure Data Studio. There's no database called movies DB yet. So if I go ahead and actually do a .NET run or a .NET build or anyone, let me do a .NET run actually. Let me just run it as is. So what will happen is it's go ahead, it's my database tables for me automatically using the command I have over here, using my this db context.database.migrate command. So let's actually just wait for that to run. Okay, so the server is ready to roll now. Let me go into my browser, and this will not be found anymore. No worries. I'll just run this just for the sake of running. And what normally happens is if I refresh this page now, I have my movies DB created for me. So this is my movies DB automatically created for me, just like that. So I can go ahead and start running operations now. So let me bring up Postman again. Postman is up and running now. Let me actually snap this side by side. VS Code, there you go. So I got my controller here, my movies controller. And let's try to get all movies. So what I'll need to do is I'll need to go to localhost 5001. Let me just create a new request. So if I go to HTTPS localhost 5001, let me try this first. It should give me a 404, not a problem. At least I know something is working. So what I need to do is go to /API/movies. If I go to /API/movies, I should be able to see all the list of my movies. But currently, I do not have any movie in my database. That is why this is blank, because I don't have anything in here. So what I need to do now, if I need to add a movie, all right, if I need to add a movie, I need to change this to a post request. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll pass in a body into my request. So I'll make sure this is raw and I'll make sure this is JSON. So I'll create a JSON object, and what I'm passing in is simple. I'm passing in add movie. In add movie, I'm adding in, let me just go to the definition of this, F12. So I'm adding a title and a link, and I'll format this as JSON now. Now watch me. So normally you shouldn't actually be typing this manually, but because I'm a little bit experienced in JSON, I can write some JSON for myself. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Just for the post. So title is some nice things. Some nice things. Okay, and then the link is https nicethingsmovie.net. Okay, so if I send this request, it will go ahead and create movies for me. To go ahead and create a movie. So you can see it gave me an ID. This is the name I put in. This is the URL, and this is the created date. Remember, we only passed in title and link. The rest of the object, the rest of the members were automatically created for us because we have them inside here. You see what we have over here? So it used the current date and time of the system. If you look over here, the current date and time at the time of this meeting it is July 25 at 6:46 p.m. You see that over there. If I go ahead and create a new movie, let me just create a new one. Let me zoom into this for you. So I'll call this another movie. And I'll go ahead and send this request. It will give me an ID of 2 for this movie that it created for me now. Now, what I need to do now, if I need to now get all the list of my movies, pretty simple. I just need to send this request and I get all my movies. I get 2 movies. This post request creates a movie for me. If I need to now get a particular movie, I need to have another get request and I'll put in the ID of the movie over here. So I'll put in probably 1 and then it will give me the movie that has ID 1. If I put in 2, it will give me the movie that has ID 2. If I put in 3, it will tell me nothing was found. You can see this result here, not found. And it will give me all this nice error message because it's postman, which is really nice. So this way, I'm able to receive my movies from my API and do all sort of wonderful stuff with it. Next thing I want to do is to be able to delete a movie. So what I do, let me create a new request over here and change this to HTTP delete. I'll just put in the ID of the movie over here. And then let me actually try to put in the ID that does not exist. It should give me a not found. You see over here, it gave me a not found. Or I could change the request. I could change the response actually over here. So if I do this, instead of returning not found, I could change it to bad requests. Okay, so let me just stop this and run it again. So you see the response code here will change. This response code will change from not found to bad request once I run it again. Okay, server is up and running. Let me send this request again now. You will see if you watch closely over here, my response code changed to bad request. You can see error 400, it's a bad request and all sorts. Now, let's try to modify a movie. Okay, so let me create a new request over here. That'll be a put. And then I'll put in the ID of the movie. And then I'll have a body, of course. Let me just copy this. Raw JSON. Okay, so let me call this another nice movie. And then I send the request. It will go ahead and modify the database for me. If I go to and do my get request again now, if you look over here, this is the result we had before. You see the one that has ID 1. The title of the movie is Some Nice Things. If I was to run this request again now after doing the put request, I would see that my movie title has changed just like that. So that is how a put request actually works. for some reason, I need to just make sure the casing is nice and okay. So that is HTTP put, post, put and delete, just in a little scenario. Now, I've been using Postman all along. I think for the purpose of this, I can skip the rating part. This is just some common C# logic behind it. So what would happen? Let me go ahead over here. Let me just remove this rate movie. Let me remove this for the sake of time. So what I will do is, now we've been running this over and over again. Now the normal scenario of where you have your application, as I explained some time ago to Ross, is you will have your API, okay, connecting to your database, and then you have your front-end application, which could be a mobile app, it could be a web browser or another web browser calling your API, and then this connects to a database somewhere. So your front-end can be practically anything. It can be an IoT device, can be a machine learning application, can be anything, or can be a BI application. So normally what now happens is you've written the API, sometimes they call it backend. You've written the API. Now you need to be able to show this API to people without having to show them the code. You will now need to be able to actually properly document this API. Now, because of .NET now allows you to be able to do that. Now you have your APIs properly documented. It's good and okay to go. So there's an open API documentation library called Swagger that lets you show all your controller actions as they come. So what I'll do is I'll just do a little bit of Google on Bing now. So I'll search for ASP.NET Core Swagger. Because to be honest, sometimes I even forget these commands myself. So I'll search for this and I'll go to the Microsoft documentation link. Then what I'll do next from here is I'm just waiting for that to load up. Let me actually snap this to the side so that we can work with it side by side. Okay, I'm using VS Code. Okay, so I need to add the NuGet package for /buckle. So I'll just copy this here. Of course, I will change the command that I'll change the sample command. So what I need to do now, let me move this a little bit up. Let me paste this and I'll remove this because I'm in my CS proj directory. I can remove this one also, to be honest, I don't need it. Okay, so I'm adding /buckle.asp.NET core to my code, to my application rather. Now that I've added /buckle.asp.NET core, next thing I need to do is start the automatic documentation of my API. So what I need to do is go ahead and add Swagger to my application. Just, add Swagger. So what I'll do now is I'll go over up here in my configure services method. I'll add this, add Swagger gen. Okay, I don't need to resolve anything, do I? Oh, it just worked. And also in my configure method, before my routing, I'll need to use Swagger. Let me do this after database migration. I'll need to use Swagger, and then also I need to add this code snippet over here. Now this is all I need to do, and my API is automatically documented for me. So I can give this now a title. Just a moment. So I might need to change this a little bit. So I'll change this to movies API. Why am I typing movies? To be honest, I don't know why, but you'll forgive me. So I got this over here. So I'm pretty much good to go. So what I need to do now is when I run this application, so this is all I added. I added services.swaggergen, and then in my application before routing, I did app.useSwagger, and then I did use Swagger UI. So that is what gives me the user interface for what my Swagger application, what my documentation would look like, and I am just giving it a title, Movies API. So if I do a .NET run on this one now, when I do a .NET run, just give it a bit of time. Okay, so now that is running, let me go ahead to my browser and launch it. So normally, if I added Swagger to my application, I'll normally need to go to /Swagger. So right over here, I'll need to go to Swagger to be able to access it. So if I do this now, I will be able to see the API documentation right out of the box. Boom, just like that. I can even run the commands over here in Swagger. I can do all that over here. To get all my movies, I can get a particular movie, put in the ID of the movie, boom, it will show me the results, just like that. So now this gives me a better view. So if I'm giving this to a mobile application developer or a BI person or someone that or a Angular developer, a React developer, a Blazor developer, they know exactly what routes to call. They know exactly what my models also look like. You can see here, they know exactly what my models look like. So they know how to write their own code better without me having to be there all the time. As long as they have the architecture, they have the flow charts, now they have the API documentation. Another thing I could do is go back to my code over here. And remember when I went to localhost /5001, what happens? It gives me a not found. Because it's an API, it has no view, it has no pages. So what I can do is ensure that my Swagger documentation is actually on the first page when I launch my application. If I go to localhost /5001, localhost 5001, I will get my documentation straight up by putting c.route prefix equals string.empty. So if I was to go ahead to run this again now, if I run this again and I go to localhost 5001, that HTTPS route. Just a moment. If I go to localhost 5001, let me just remove all these ones. I will get my documentation right there. So now, if anybody now, so if I was to host this on a server somewhere, if I went there to host it on a server, they will just need to go to my API URL, maybe moviesapi.net, and then they will get the results right out of the box. And that is how Swagger basically works. So let me just go ahead and see if there's something I've not covered for the purpose of this. So yeah, basically much we've touched on everything. So now, you might not be asking me, how do I add this to a view? How do I connect this to a user interface? It's pretty simple. All you have to do is for your controllers over here, if you go to your movies controller here, what you need to do is probably have separate controllers, but the normal scenario, the ideal scenario is you have another front-end application that connects to this, because you need to be able to separate problems, you need to separate concerns for your application. So normally you'll have, so now you would need to create your views folder. I've taught us how to do that. Maybe we can have another session where we talk on how to do the view adding and all that, but I feel that is not necessary for the purpose of this. But of course, we can talk about that much later. So this now gives me the whole view of doing my CRUD operations. I have my API, I've added my database, I'm connected to it, I'm able to perform operations by creating, reading, updating, and delete, and I'm pretty much good to go with all that. So that's it, guys. I hope I've been able to at least give light to some of the questions that you might have. Um, yeah, basically.